Have you ever worked with Power Pages and you wanted to download all the files to your local machine, do some edits, and upload it? That's possible with the Power Platform CLI, and you have a bunch of commands for Power Pages to make your life easier. In this episode, Nick Dolman is here to talk all about that. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Low Code Revolution. Today I have a very special episode because we're joined by Nick Dolman and we're going to talk about Power Pages in Power Platform CLI. Nick, welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Daniel. Great to be here. Hello, everybody. And yeah, my name is Nick Dolman. I'm currently a senior content developer at Microsoft. And you may have run into me before. I used to be an MVP like Daniel before we got scooped up by the mothership. and I presented, did a lot of presentations around Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, and of course, Power Apps Portals, which is now Power Pages. But my job, basically, my day job is I work on the documentation and content for Power Pages. I work closely with the program managers and the engineering team as they're coming out with new features, making sure that we have the right documentation. So as you folks try out these new features, that you have good instructions and good information on how to do that.
And that's so helpful because the documentation is always always the good stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, it's all like, I used to myself, when I was working on projects or even doing things like presentations or training, I always had to refer back to the documentation, which used to be on docs.microsoft.com. Now it's on learn.microsoft.com. Don't worry, the docs link will still work, but it was just, it was like one of my main bookmarks. I always had to go back and how does this particular piece of software work? How does this feature work? And then of course, for those of you who don't know, learn.microsoft.com is constantly being updated. Probably every week I do dozens of updates. So that content's never going to be old. It's going to be as fresh as we can make it to be. And we're working on it every day to make it better.
Yeah. So whenever you have a new name change, then you can just replace all of it.
Yeah, that never happened.
So you brought some slides for the Power Pages part of Power Platform CLI. Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, so let's just dive in. We're going to talk about the Power Platform CLI and talk a little bit about what Power Pages is as well. So before we dive into that, let's just make sure that everybody's a bit level set on what is Power Pages. And really what it boils down to, it's a platform to create websites and web applications for your external audiences. And what's cool about it is, there's a lot of tools to build websites, and we can even build websites in Azure and using some of the other tools, but this provides a way to connect directly to Microsoft Dataverse. So if you have all your business data in Dataverse and you have in your own organization Power Apps that's managing this stuff, or you might even be using the Dynamics 365 apps, you can take this information and present that to your customers, your partners, your vendors, students, members, all these types of folks. They don't need licensing. They can go to a website, they can log in, or even if they're public, they can go in and see data directly from your Dataverse instance. So I would for those of you who are not familiar with Power Pages, check it out, check our documentation. We've got some good tutorials there. Spin up a trial, give it a run and build some. I want to see some exciting websites, folks, to create.
Yeah, and what are the normal scenarios where you use Power Pages? That's usually with external audiences. That's what the slide, of course, says. But whenever you want to connect Dataverse data to outside, right? That's kind of the big scenario. So yeah, like customer portals, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So if you have let's say your organization and you're selling widgets, and what you need if you want to have your customer support, like of course there's other tools that Microsoft has, but what Portals is great for, or I should say Power Pages, is where your customers can log in, they can open support tickets, they can view the status, they can see FAQs to help them resolve their issues. Maybe even if they're doing their billing, to see their invoices, that type of thing gives them a conduit. They can log in, very securely, take security very seriously. They'll be able to log in a secure manner and see only the data that they're allowed to see and be able to access that. And they don't need to download any other special applications or apps or anything like that. They can just go to a website and see all this information.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so along with Power Pages, and it is a low code, no code type of interface where makers can build pretty powerful websites, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Like with anything in the Power Platform, yeah, we have all these great maker tools, but we also need to bring in the developers. We have our Fusion teams because there are those cases where we're going to need to bring in the developers to do that extra stuff, to do that heavy lifting, to build some more interfaces, more connectors, more special ways for users to be able to interact with the data that kind of go above and beyond of what the tools that are available. So in order to do that, how would a developer get used to building things in Power Pages? Well, of course, they want to go to something like Visual Studio Code, and also, part of governance, they want to have proper ALM. And this is where the Power Platform, the command line interface, has a lot of tools for Dataverse already, but it has specific commands for Power Apps portals, or should I say, again, I'm getting used to the name change, Power Pages. So we should take a look at that. And if you're a developer, to get this is within Visual Studio Code. Go to the marketplace. This is no extra charge. This is something we provide for free. Well, everyone loves free stuff, right? You like free stuff, right, Daniel?
Of course I do.
So you might have already covered this in a previous episode, but in order to get this, just go to Visual Studio Code, go to the marketplace, look for the Power Platform tools, and then just install those in your your VS Code, and then you're going to have all those tools pre-installed, and that includes the command line interface. And I like to do this as part of the Power Platform tools. We could download it separately as well and do it in PowerShell, but I like working in VS Code for a lot of the stuff that I need to do. So that's all great to talk about. How about we actually, do this for real? Play around with it. What do you think?
Cool. Right. Let's do it.
Cool. All right. So this is actually what we call the design studio for Power Pages. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where our users could go in and begin to, our makers could go in and they can begin to add pages, they can design pages. And here I've created like I mentioned earlier, I've created a web page called widgets, and I've added some controls here. This is a list component. I can add other components, just add a section here. And again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because we want to see the cool stuff, but I can add components like a form or a list or a multi-step form. And this is how a maker can connect to Dataverse. But like I said, there might be instances where we want to start adding a little bit more code to our page. Of course, we could directly go to VS Code for the web with this edit code. But at this point, all we can do there is really just edit web pages. And there might be some other aspects of Power Pages that we want to edit. So let's flip back to VS Code. Again, one of my favorite tools. So we're here in VS Code. And again, this is the code, the tool that we can do a lot of different things with. And I've opened up the terminal. And the first thing is, if we've installed the Power Platform tools, we want to be able to connect to our Dataverse environments, right? So we have this Power Platform here, and I can add my profiles here. And these are the profiles that I would to connect to different environments. So I already connected to an environment here, but this is a great thing about the Power Platform tools is I can just click on, if I have other environments, I can click on this, and then it's going to pop up with another screen where I can pick my environment, or I could use another account and connect to another environment. So I can connect to different environments and work on the different, basically different Power Page sites that I might have built in these different environments.
Yeah, so this is like, this is a tenant, right? So whenever you create an auth profile, you can have multiple tenants, and then after you connect it to the multiple tenants, you can also see all the different environments, etc.
Absolutely. And that's a very important, because a lot of folks I know a lot of developers, they might not necessarily be working directly for a customer. They could be working for an integrator, and they probably have. And I think, Daniel, you and I, we've worked in partners before where we're dealing with sometimes multiple customers. So we need to connect to different environments.
Yeah, this list will probably have a scroll bar because all the customers.
Yeah, I actually I cleaned it up yesterday to reduce this. So let me just go back to whoops, files. Let's close that down. So I basically went, and I'm just going to go, and I'm going to use the terminal now, because the Power Platform command line, it is a command line interface. So of course we all know it says PAC, and anytime I just type that in, then I'm getting a list of all of these commands that I can work with. So I see all of those, and there's a whole bunch of stuff here. We have a lot of neat stuff. And basically, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I'm working with the right Dataverse organization. So I see PAC org. So again, I'm going to type PAC org. And again, once I type these things, I have a whole bunch of other subcommands list. I want to see what I have access to. So the other thing, another tip here is I can go the up arrow, and that's going to show me the last command that I did. So I don't have to keep retyping all of this stuff. So I'm going to go PAC org list. And here are the environments that are part of the tenant that I'm connected to right now. And now that I've connected to that tenant, I can see all these environments. And I want to connect to my own environment here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that environment ID. I'm just going to copy that. And I'm now going to go PAC org. And then again, I could find out the command that I need, but I remembered it's select because I want to select the particular environment. And then we have the parameter that we need to pass, -environment. I'm going to hit my clipboard here and paste in that. Again, another quick tip, Windows V as opposed to Control V, that's your friend. You can actually save a whole bunch of things when you do a copy. So I've selected this, I'm going to click enter. And then now I'm basically going to be connected for the Power Platform CLI. I'm being connected to that particular environment. So far, so good. Now what we also want to do with some of the other commands is get into our Power Pages commands for the command line interface. So I want to type PAC, and I'm going to type PA Portal. So PA Portal, you're wondering, you're probably saying, wait a minute, isn't this Power Pages? It is, but it evolved from a feature of Power Apps called Power Apps Portals. And of course, we don't like to change the syntax for developers because we know that could cause all sorts of problems. So it's still called PA Portal. So once I do this, I'll be able to see the list of commands that I have. So it's telling me I'm missing a subcommand. Yeah, that's fine. I knew that. But I have a list, I have a download, and I have an upload. So when I type list, it's going to show me all the Power Pages websites in my current Dataverse environment. So let's take a look. List, and I'm connecting and telling me the environment. And I currently only have one website in that particular environment. You could have up to 50 websites per Dataverse environment. So this list could be a lot bigger if you had multiple sites. Luckily, I only have one. So again, I want to use this website ID. I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to type P again, PAC, and now I want to download this information. So we're going to talk about a little bit something else. When we're configuring a Power Page site, that is every web page you add, every form that you add, every component, the styling, the text, all of that stuff is stored as metadata in Dataverse. And of course, when we're using things like the Design Studio or another tool that we call the Portal Management app, we're configuring that Dataverse information. But as a developer, I don't necessarily want to go into a model-driven app to modify a lot of this metadata. Like I can, but it gets a little bit clunky. As a developer, I want to be able to go in and maybe edit web templates directly, maybe edit code directly, some JavaScript, those types of things. And then also from an ALM perspective, we want to move that data over from different environments. Now, there's a couple different ways we can do that, but of course, the Power Platform command line interface provides us with a lot of that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, go PA portal. And now I want to download. That's the command I'm going to use. Now I'm going to specify a path to download that to. Again, I'm just going to go to my C drive in a dev folder that I created earlier. And now we want to know what site that we want to download. So I'm going to do -ID. Again, I'm going to go into my clipboard. I'm going to paste in the GUID, which we see here's the website ID. And then the other thing I'm going to make sure I do is set the overwrite to true, because I have downloaded this before, but maybe I had some makers go in, add some new pages. Maybe they've added some new components. So I'm going to overwrite and refresh the data on my local machine. I'm going to do this.
This could be really cool also for source control, of course.
Absolutely.
To see which changes were made by which developer, etc.
Exactly. So if multiple people are working on this, as opposed to downloading this from the site directly, then what I could do is I could download this from my source control, whether it's like Azure DevOps or GitHub or something like that. And then from there, we can begin to see the deltas and the changes, and again, who checked it and checked in and checked out and all that fun stuff. So I've downloaded all this stuff. So that's great. I have all this metadata. And so what do we do now? So again, like we said, what we could do is we could have our source control grab this and throw this into source control, or we can, of course, automate all of this. But the cool thing is now that I've downloaded that, I can go in and I'm going to open the folder, and I'm going to go to my dev folder, my C drive, dev, and we see here that this is the folder I've downloaded, and I'm going to select, actually I'm going to go up a level, I'm going to select this folder. And now I'm just going to OK on that. So I'm going to move the terminal down, and I'll probably just increase the resolution a little bit so y'all can see that a little bit better. And here we have all the portal metadata downloaded, and it's all nicely color coded. There's different icons here, so you can see things like basic forms, content snippets, lists, web files, web pages, web templates, all of that stuff here. So if I were to, sorry, you had a question there, Daniel?
No, I really like it. It has the whole icons there that makes it really easy to see what you're selecting, of course. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And so what I've done is in this web template or a web page, I can look at my web pages. And they're all kind of broken out into folders as well. So as soon as I create a web page, we can see here's that widgets web page that I had earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a piece of code. And here's that widgets page. I'm going to expand that. And here, if I look at the expand that out, I can look at the copy. And it's pretty straightforward now. But if I look at it, I can see here that I have this page as content. I'm going to expand that out further and go look at my copy HTML here. And then remember we set up like things like a list and a section and that kind of stuff. So I have all that here. I have that list, and that's actually embedded as Liquid code. So as a developer, Liquid is a markup language that you can use to display information. So when a maker added a list component to a page, it actually injected a piece of Liquid code, and we can see that here. But what I could do is I could begin to add my own code directly here as I work on this. So I'm going to look at here I had that heading, the widgets in the header. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's add another paragraph here. So again, if you're used to HTML, which of course I know you are, Daniel, you're an HTML guy.
I am.
So what I'll do is I'm going to paste in some of that Liquid code, and it's pretty straightforward. It's and I'll just kind of walk you through it. So what I want to do is add a little bit of a greeting. So I'm going to go hello, and I'm using the Liquid tag user. It's hello.fullname, and I'm going through an escape, and then actually no, I actually have to add a bit more code here. So first off, I'm going to add if user, because we want to know if a user is logged in or not. And of course, VS Code sometimes likes to mess around with me a little bit, but that's okay. So basically I'm doing if user, hello, user full name. But if there is no user for some reason, like if I'm not logged in, if I'm an anonymous, then it's just going to say hello anonymous user and just do an end if. So a little bit of easy code if you've used Liquid. It's very similar to a lot of other markup languages or JavaScript, that type of thing. I've added that code into my web page here. So of course, what I'm going to do is, now that I've made that edit, I'm going to save it. And of course, what I'd probably want to do is commit this to source control, put it as a commit because I've made the change, but I really want to, how is this going to look on my particular site? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to terminal, add a new terminal again. And now what I want to do is I want to upload this back into my portal, or I can even, if I made these changes and let's say download it from source control, I can move this metadata from one site to another. So if you're wondering how to move your site changes from one environment to another, the Pack CLI can do that as well. So I'm going to go Pack, PA portal again, because we are working with Power Pages. And now I'm going to choose the upload command. And again, I need to pick my path. Now here, it's going to be a little bit more trickier than just CDev because I have my full site that I want to bring in. So I want to do site -1 site -55 LPO. And so I've basically put that in. I've made the changes. So now let's see what happens. And again, it's going to connect to my site. It's giving me a bit of a warning about public and private sites. And the only thing I changed was that one web page. So that's all it uploaded. Notice that there was a delta. So it only can upload the delta. So you don't have to wait for it to upload the entire site again. It's only going to load the pieces that are different. So I've uploaded this web page. That was it. I've uploaded that code now. So now I can go back and transition to my Power Pages site in the editor and see the change. So what I'm going to do, I'm back in the Design Studio. I'm going to sync. And what that sync does, it basically goes back to Dataverse. It says, hey, Dataverse, what other configuration info do you have? It's going to bring that up. And look what it did here. It said, hello, John Doe. It basically ran the code directly in my Design Studio because that was the code that I added directly to that page using the Visual Studio Code. So if I do preview, and what that's going to do is going to load the site. Now it says anonymous user because I'm logged in as an anonymous user, but what I could do is I could just sign in and let's see if it changes. I'm just going to sign in with Azure AD. Again, different identity providers, topic for a whole other day. And I'm going to pick the identity that I've signed in on. And what that's going to do, it's going to display, says widgets, hello, Nick Dolman, because it ran that Liquid code and it's able to show me my own name that I'm logged in here as. So pretty quick and easy stuff that you can use the Pack CLI for. Just to recap, what we did was we basically downloaded all of the portal metadata directly to our local machine. We used VS Code, we made a few edits, and then what we did is we re-uploaded that back up to Dataverse, and then we went back into the Design Studio and just to see how it would look refreshed, and then we were able to see the result of our code. And then of course, in the meantime, of course, I could have added commands to upload this to source control, and then I could even take that same portal metadata and we could transfer that to other sites and deploy it maybe from a test site to another staging site, or even eventually down the road to our production site. So all in all, a lot of cool stuff that we can do with the Power Platform command line interface directly on Power Pages.
Yeah, I really like the upload command as well, where you have like a delta of the of all the different parts of the portal, of course, because Yeah, and when you were downloading it, there's so much details in there.
Yeah.
But when you upload, it saves you so much time because it was really quick. It was just a second, and everything was updated.
Yeah, I tell you, Daniel, if I'm working on some of these sites, I have Visual Studio Code open, I make a few changes. I basically run that upload command. It goes pretty quick, and I can flip back and see how those changes look. To do that, before I'd say the olden days of life, like 5-10 years ago, of course, we'd have to recompile the code and then deploy it to an IIS server. We might even have one running locally. It would take a long time to actually change the code and actually see it displayed. And here's something we can do pretty quickly. It's pretty great. The other thing is we have, again, there's a few more features. There's something called deployment profiles. So again, that helps us, tailor the whether we're pointing it to a dev or a test site of what information will get transferred. So we might have some connection, some labeling, some other things that are very specific to our dev site that we don't want to move over. We can begin to filter those out or make it a little bit more customized depending on the environment that we're moving to.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I really like the commands you showed here, and yeah, I think a lot of people will be very excited to work with this. So yeah, Nick, thanks a lot for telling us all the great goodies.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, Daniel. This is I know it's like command line stuff, but on the other hand, there's so much you can do with it. Sometimes we get a little bit buried in these point and click interfaces where sometimes just a few commands and we can get a lot done.
Yeah, and I think that also when you are clicking in the portals, etc., it can take a long time with loading times, etc. And sometimes a command can just grab all kinds of details in a really easy way, and it will save you lots of time, actually.
Absolutely.
So thanks a lot, Nick. Yeah, and also thanks to all the viewers here. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and make sure to leave a reaction or comment if you want to learn a bit more. And with that, we're at the end of our show. So I hope to see you at the next episode. Bye bye.